Well, look who showed up just in time for all the fun, right? That's you again, of course, if you didn't figure that out. Working on 1968 Firebird project, the Great Pumpkin, or I've got a couple of names works on, but whatever. Nonetheless, 1968 Firebird. Last go around, I cut all the floor up. Here in the meantime, I've spent a little time cleaning up the edges, getting the rest of the floor pan off of the transmission tunnel, and completely removed the inner rocker from the driver's side. The part that I wanted to show you is getting that installed and test fitted and getting it where it needs to be. I'm not going to get it welded in this time around because I've got a lot of prep work. Plus, I don't want to permanently install it because I got to do some fixing up here in front. Let me show you. And of course, you guys have been watching this, you've already seen some of the damage we have going on up here, but the reason I don't want to weld it in yet is the rocker panel actually kind of covers up this part here. It ties here and all this together, but I want to get all this cut out of the way first and determine where I'm going to section in my toe board repair section at. And just in case, I finally figured out where the big dent came from here. I got a pretty solid theory now, so don't forget to ask me how that happened, but I think I got that mystery figured out. So like I said, I want to get this rocker panel test fitted. That's the goal for this go around, at least outside here in the garage this time visiting. But you can see I've got it all cleaned up, looking really nice. Now, I guess the weld here originally, the pinch weld, was actually in really nice shape. So it cleaned up, got that thing cut out pretty quick. But what I want to do before installing the inner rocker is I need to get this kind of cleaned up. It's not bad rusty, but I want to wire brush that, treat it, and then do some weld through primer on all these faces. So as I install it, I don't have corrosion building up in between them. And the same back here. I've got to do some cleanup on this stuff here. A little bit of wire brushing and I say chemical treating, and then weld through primer on that. But what I want to do is, how do we get this thing fitted in the car and where it needs to be? Of course, I lay out my typical essential tools, and that one's my favorite one. But there's my little bag of, I guess, little bag or box of screws that I use to assemble these cars. And I'll show you that technique and why I think it works really good. Well, that rust converter primer stuff does this stuff, works this magic on that rust to help conceal it. I wanted to show you why I did the outer rocker panel, bring a little more clarity, because this thing was very rusty and in bad shape. Now, where I sectioned it at was right here on the seam of the door opening. Come out pretty good, but a little filler work, but not bad off. But the idea was, now I get here on the inside, I can't get the camera angle right, but I can paint the inside of that where I welded it at, so I can actually stop or prevent the thing from rusting out again. So that's one of the advantages of doing it this way. I can paint the whole inside of this rocker panel, and sure, long life again, like the original galvanized coating. It did a really great job on this car back in '68. So that's just about dry. I'll go ahead and hit it with some of the weld through primer, then we'll get this thing test fit up into place. Okay, well, as this primer all dries and gets all happy and ready to do some welding or screwing this thing together, need to come up with a plan where we're going to cut that thing out here on the toe board. Now, AMD doesn't make that panel. This is actually an off-brand one that I bought, brand new. CHL is the brand name on it, but you'll see that pretty much all these panels are made in Taiwan, but somehow they must be a different classification who it goes to. But nonetheless, this one's actually stamped very nice, super clean lines where the supports go. So by the time you actually section it in, because that's what I plan to do, because it is a repair section, you don't have to use the entire thing. Only use the part that you need. Try to leave as much original metal on the car as possible is kind of how I like to do it. So I'm gonna come up with the idea, maybe we'll cut some around here, but how do we mark it and all that good stuff? As I'm about to show you, but I think we need to cut some of this back to see how bad that brace is and determine, well, how far up we need to go on it till it finally looks good enough to say we can section it. So I think the first thing is just kind of cut back maybe about halfway here, take a peek inside and see what we have underneath that toe board. All right, well, now you can see what I can see. Obviously, we've got some holes here. I think that's actually in really good shape. I'm thinking we might just come, nope, jump, bad, oop, yep, bad. We're gonna come up through here and come across here, somewhere around this area here, and replace from there down. By the time it gets up here, there's not even any really rust going on. It is definitely some surface rust, yes, but I don't think it's necessarily structural. So we'll get this all cleaned up, cut it off through there, get this piece installed. Nice. The next thing is, went ahead and wire brushed and I guess you rust converted this, but I'm gonna cut it somewhere along this area here and here. And then what becomes the question is, obviously there's where this goes into space. You know, we can kind of get a closer eyeball, but if you didn't catch the video before, there's my measuring point. So I can measure from here up, and I know exactly where it needs to be elevation-wise. So if I section this panel, I know where it needs to be positioned when done. So like I said, if you didn't watch that video, shame on you, but this is the beautiful thing about that. Make sure your bubble level is set to the floor. Drop the tape measure down. Then we can actually inspect the height of the floor pan. Looks like 13 and just under 3/4. So I even checked the other side. It's the same 13 3/4. So we're still on the money. Even how rusted that thing is, it's still actually holding position even after removing the floor pan out of this thing. So kind of impressive. So I do know now, cut this out, get my patch panel place, get this position at that height, weld it in, and then I can actually work on making this panel to go in next. After carefully measuring the panels with an outline of masking tape, I've actually duplicated here on the panel, so I'm going to cut. 1, 2, 3, and then fuse those together with the measurements we came up with. And the other thing I also know from here to here is 9 1/8 inch. I wrote that up there, the little scratch pad on the firewall. So that way I know where it goes, elevation and side to side. That should get me where I need to be. Well, there we go. We got this all trimmed and ready to go. Like I said, we'll get a little welding action here, tack it into place, check the elevation, fill in the gaps, and should be in really good shape here. Right on 13 3/4. How's that possible? Yeah, we'll take it. And then this needs to be 9 1/8. It's 9. Okay, here we go. Got it all welded in, nice, even. I actually pulled up real tight. Actually, that's kind of hot. Don't touch that. But weld clean, really clean. So I'm really happy with the results of that. And I'll buff the weld on the inside a little bit. Then I'll address the welds on the side that you can see under the hood. And then we'll recheck our height. And it should be 13 3/4. I'll take the tape measure up, and we're right there, 13 3/4. And this needs to be 9 1/8. And well, I'm right at 9, so I think we can make that work, because I still gotta leave a little bit of a gap, because you actually have to tuck, the toe board goes in there and the floor pan still goes in between here. So I've got enough room. So that 1/8 inch, I don't think I needed to scoot over any further, because this should actually give me plenty of space to drop those panels in there. So like I said, clean up the welds, and then I gotta drill a hole right here. There's supposed to be a hole just from my buddy Lewis. He told me all about it, and he's 100% right. There's for 1968s where the speedometer little clip mounts on that piece here. So I'm gonna drill a hole just for you, Lewis. Oh, and one more little side note. That chunk that I cut out pretty quickly, don't throw that away. What you use that for? Actually a really nice template as long as you like this edge that I cut, or if you cut out of your car that you actually like where it's at, we got some good metal, we can actually get this laid flat against this panel and then trace it and then cut it, and it gets you a template that's really, really close. But always give yourself a little extra wiggle room, because it's easier to subtract metal than it is to add, like what, measure twice, cut once kind of stuff. Well, that's the idea, but you can at least use this for a template to get you really close. But next thing is, let's get this rocker test fitted. Let's get this into place. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put this in as if I'm not gonna take it back out. All my weld through primers in place good. All my dirt swept clean out of there. So there's a chance that I may not take this back loose, as long as I can get my panels back in once I'm all done. So at this point, we'll get this located. So I'm gonna keep it just about a 1/16 of an inch shy of that panel up there. That's gonna be my starting point to start clamping this thing into place. And on the bottom, I just keep the outer rocker panel and the inner rocker panel at the same height, or I guess the same mounting height. Now the factory doesn't do that, but we're going to. And of course, the neighbor's cutting the grass again, but one of the joys of living in a neighborhood, but that's all right. Back here. Now I clamped the bottom first for a reason. As you can tell, something's kind of funny going on here. We're a little shy on the top. From the factory, it was just a little bit below, probably a 1/16 of an inch. But we're going to use gravity to our advantage. I'm going to get the floor jack and put it underneath here and push this thing up into place. Use the weight of the car to push it down, and then I'll actually put some clamps on the top up here. But I can almost get it by hand as it is, so it tells you how much flex there is on that thing. Okay, well, there we go. Next part here, you'll see a red racing stripe front to rear on the car. That's the gap that I'm wanting to close up. Now we're going to say work a little smarter instead of harder, is we'll use gravity and the weight of the car to help push that bottom of that rocker panel to meet where it was originally. It was just slightly below that panel from the factory. And you can see when you cut these cars apart, they're always just a little bit different. My goal is to get it as close to the same height as it was from the factory. So that's how we're going to do that, though. I got the jack underneath the rocker panel. I'll go ahead and pump it up a few times. You'll watch the red racing stripe just start to disappear. And once we get it in place, put a couple of vice grips in place to hold it while we're getting things positioned the rest of the way. Of course, it's a little front heavy. There we go. So add my body weight to it. That gets us the rest of the way down. Actually works pretty good. Oh, we'll get front clamped. And do the back just the same. There you have it. Now we're coming through now and put my little self-tapping screws all in this thing, and that'll pull it all together. And that's how you get that thing installed. We'll get you in a little bit closer. You can see a little more what's happening here. That's the original outer. This is the inner we just got done putting in. You see the height difference a little bit. That's how it was from the word go. So I kind of just matched, followed suit. The bottom I got to line up on the same plane. They're actually the same height, inner and outer. But as we're coming back, it all looks pretty even, looks great until we get about here. It's a little bit high. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe drop a screw in here, and I've got a little technique here to kind of get that pulled back, because even here in the drain, my level isn't correct, but I got a little trick for that. But we're going to put a screw into it right here first, then I'll show you what we got going on. And first thing is first, we'll drop one of my hold them in place fasteners in, and it holds the two pieces together. Okay, now that can't go anywhere, but you can see here a bit of a gap on the bottom, and it's not quite where I need it to be. The car is probably settling since I cut it all apart, but that's okay. I have a way to pull that back into place. All right, how we're going to fix that here? Big old Mr. C clamp. And you'll see a bit of a gap down here. We're going to try to close that up, get the height of that to improve. We'll see how that goes. But what we're going to do is, I might lay a piece of a plate on here to snag it better. Get this adjusted, and let's see if I can get that pulled down into place. It's kind of hard to see it in the camera, but it's starting to move. There we go. Now my opening is actually below that actual drain now. So, and the gap here, you don't see the red showing anymore. So I'm going to clamp it or drop a screw into that there into place, and that should work really nice. Okay, I've got a couple of screws all set into place. This is test fitted where I like it, happy. Everything looks really nice. So that's going to wrap us up for this time around. It's actually not all that late. Only got about 3 more hours invested in this thing. So making some great progress. Inner rocker panel, loving how it's fitting. Test fit great, got all the screws into place. Even got part of the subframe mounting thing replaced on our torque box. There's so many names for this piece, but that doohickey right there. It's been test fitted in place, so I got to drill the hole. But nonetheless, that's in there. Next thing is going to be putting this toe board in. So if you want to see how to put that in there, maybe your car didn't need this piece or it did, but we're going to get that toe board actually matched up a lot more better. And then if I need to take it out, take the rocker panel out to get the toe board in, I can. But now I have it all mocked into place, put the screws right back in. I'm right back to where I started from. So anyway, so I guess you say, you want to know what's coming up next? Toe board. Inner rocker test fitted and get done, and we'll do the exact same thing here to the passenger side. Probably won't grab the camera for that process because you just saw it over here, but I'll knock that out here in the meantime and keep working along, get this thing squared away. But nonetheless, I said enough again, like I always do, and it's getting kind of late, and I like to go find me something to eat like the norm. And of course, appreciate you following me on the journey, and we'll catch you guys next time.